Hello viewers, welcome to our channel Throwlight. In this video, let's understand the frequently asked JavaScript questions in interview. Let's begin. Explain hoisting in JavaScript. Hoisting is a default behavior of JavaScript where all the variable and the function declarations are moved onto the top. This means that irrespective of whether the variables or the functions are declared, they are moved on top of the scope. The scope can both local and the global. Let's understand this with example. If you see here, I have created a variable and assigned it a value 3. Now I am trying to print the variable value using console.log. Now here I am declaring this variable using a var. So when I try to execute this output, this console.log will print this value 3. It's because this variable is hoisted and it assigns a value. So it means this declaration of the variable will move to the top of the scope. Now let's understand this hoisting with other example. Now I am calling this function before declaration. If you see here, I have created a function and inside the function I am printing hello world in console. I am calling this function before declaration. So this function gets hoisted and without getting any errors, the function gets called. If you see the output in console, it prints hello world. So even the function is declared after calling that function, it gets hoisted and moved on top of the scope. There are 2 points to be noted here. Variable initializations are not hoisted. Only variable declarations are hoisted. Here I have declared a variable x and trying to print the x value in console. After that I am initializing this variable with the value. So when I see the output, it gives the value as undefined. So it means variable initializations are not hoisted. Only variable declarations are hoisted. And another point to be noted that to avoid hoisting, you can run JavaScript in strict mode by using use strict on top of the code. Here if you see, value x is equal to 23. After that, I am declaring the variable x. In general, this variable x will get hoisted and assign the value 23. But now here I am using use strict. So for that, this hoisting will not get executed in this code. So to avoid hoisting, you can run the JavaScript in strict mode by using use strict. What is the difference between double equal to and triple equal to operators? These double equal to and triple equal to operators are the comparison operators. The difference between them is that this double equal to is used to compare the values, whereas triple equal to is used to compare both the value and as well as types. If you see here, the variable x is equal to 2. And also there is a variable y which is equal to 2. So when I try to use the condition x double equal to y, it will return true because it will compare the values. It will not compare the types. So when I try to print x triple equal to y, it returns the value as false because it not only checked the values, it also checked the type of the values. Here the type of the values, one is number and other is string. So the values are equal but the types are not equal. That's why it returns as false. Is JavaScript a statically typed or dynamically typed language? JavaScript is a dynamically typed language. In a dynamically typed language, the type of a variable is checked during runtime, where the type of a variable is checked during compile time. Since JavaScript is a dynamically typed language, variables in JavaScript are not associated with any type. A variable can hold the value of any data type. For example, if you see the variable here, I have assigned this with a value 23. That means a number. Now for the same variable, now I am assigning a string over here. So this variable a can hold both the value number and also a string. So that is the reason JavaScript is a dynamically typed language. What is an immediately invoked function in JavaScript? An immediately invoked function is a function that runs as soon as it is defined. If you see the syntax here, it has two sets of parentheses. Now let's understand these two sets of parentheses. While executing JavaScript code, whenever the compiler sees the word function, it assumes that we are declaring a function in the code. Therefore, if we do not use the first set of parentheses, the compiler throws an error because it thinks that we are declaring a function. And by the syntax of the declaring a function should always have a name. Now let's understand second set of parentheses. So from the definition of immediately invoked function expression, we know that our code should run as soon as it is defined. A function runs only when it is invoked. If we do not invoke the function declaration is written. Therefore, to invoke a function, we need to use the second set of parentheses. If you see the example here I have invoked the function expression. The next moment, it prints the value in the console. Explain higher order functions in JavaScript. Functions that operate on other functions either by taking them as an arguments or by returning them are called as higher order functions. Higher order functions are the result of functions being first class citizens in JavaScript. If you see the example here I have created a function higher order function. This function takes an input of a function and calling that function internally. So here I am calling this function higher order function internally with a function which displays the value hello world in the console. So this higher order is a higher order function. Now see the other function. If you see here, this function internally returns the function. So when you call this function, it will return the function with the value do something. So it returns the value do something. So higher order functions are nothing but which takes the function as an arguments or returning the functions from a function. What is currying in JavaScript? Currying is an advanced technique to transform a function of arguments and to end functions of one or less arguments. For example, if you have a function f of a comma b, then the function after currying will be transformed to f of a, b. By using a currying technique, we do not change the functionality of a function. We just change the way it is invoked. Let's see the currying in action. For example, here we have a function multiply by taking two arguments. Now this multiply function returns the value of multiplying those two numbers. Here I am writing a function curry which takes the function as an argument and it internally returning the functions with separate arguments. So for this I am passing this multiply function to this currying function where it is returning a function with two separate arguments. So you can either directly call the multiply function with the two arguments or else using currying function you can pass those two parameters separately to a function. So this multiply 4, 3 versus curried multiply with 4 and 3. So both returns the same value. We have transformed this function multiply a comma b to a function curried multiply which takes one parameter at a time. So by using this currying technique, we do not change the functionality of a function. We just change the way it is invoked. What is DOM? DOM stands for Document Object Model. DOM is a programming interface for HTML and XML documents. When a browser tries to render a HTML document, it creates an object based on the HTML document, which is called as DOM. Using this DOM, we can manipulate or changes the various elements inside the HTML element. If you see the example here, this is the HTML code which is converted into the DOM. What is memoization? Memoization is a form of caching where the written value of a function is cached based on its parameters. If the parameter of that function is not changed, the cached version of the function is returned. Let's understand memoization by converting a simple function to a memoized function. Consider an example here. So we have written a function that adds the parameter to 256 and returns it. When we are calling the function add to 256 again with the same parameter, we are computing the result again for that same parameter. Computing the result with the same parameter again and again is not a big deal. But imagine if the function does some heavy duty work and then computing that result again and again with the same parameter will lead to wastage of time. This is where memoization comes in. By using memoization, we can store the computed results based on the parameters. We can store these results in a cache based on the parameters. If the parameters is used again while invoking the function, instead of computing the result, we directly return the stored value in the cache. I am converting the same function into a memoized function. So for that, I have written the function. Inside that, I have created a variable cache. So it always returns the value present in that cache if we try to call with the same parameter. So internally, the function takes a number. If this number is already in the cache, then return the value present in the cache. If not, calculate the addition operation and then return this addition operation. That's how the logic is written. So, when you try to call this memoized function with the same parameter, so directly it will return the value that is present in the cache. If you like this video, please share with your friends and don't forget to subscribe our channel, Throw Light.